Yeah, thank you so much again, Meg, for taking the time to introduce me. So I guess I'm currently studying in the Toronto Metropolitan University. If there's any other Canadians out there, I'm also very passionate about sustainability, mental health, and diversity in the STEM field. So, I'm always open to like ideas and collaborating. And I'm also in the past couple of years, as you're mentioning, doing those internships, I was working at Microsoft and BlackRock, as well as a lot of different tech startups. So I'm excited to share my experience in those fields.
Excellent. Very, very cool. Thank you. All right. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about was what it was like for you to find that first role. Can you give us a little bit of maybe some context for people so that way they know, how long ago you were doing this, how long it went, that kind of stuff. So what was it like when you were doing this and searching for the first time?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was in high school, I got involved with my community a lot, mostly in like the sustainability and business side of things. And I also was doing like computer science courses, computer engineering, and then I eventually went into computer science at the University of Waterloo. So I think that really gave me a good entryway to get introduced to like tech companies and the tech ecosystem. And what they encouraged us a lot to do is like do side projects, participate in hackathons, case competitions, and try to do well in school as well, do well in school. So I feel like it was just a lot of different combinations of things. So like first is just having those side projects ready to go. Personally, like I tried my best with side projects, but I mostly just did a lot of like extracurricular activities to kind of showcase my technical skills. And then I also participated in passion projects like sustainability and mental health projects, because that's something that I'm just personally passionate about and I wanted to align with the company that I'm working for. And then the third thing is just being diligent during the recruitment process. So at least when you're starting out in school, whether or not you're in the co-op program, you want to do like your research on the companies or the types of roles you want to explore. Like I know it's really daunting to like see all these different companies and be like, I don't know what to do. Like, it's so confusing. There's so many different types of companies out there, but like,
I never
really.
realized you were the voice inside my head that was like, that was like, truly sounded like an echo chamber. Like, yeah, you get to that point, you're like, but anyway, I don't know.
Exactly, honestly, like that was like me for like a few years, like just like, oh, what am I doing? I don't know what's happening. So
I mean, let's be real, none of us do. Everybody, nobody's done today before. We're all making it up.
yeah, exactly.
We all survive based on YouTube and TikTok. This is
I know, definitely. Like I feel like I've changed careers in my mind like so many times. So so yeah, like so yeah, again, like I know it can be like daunting at first, but like really just be open to anything, honestly. Like I kind of applied for a lot of different types of jobs. I think it was around like 50 to 60 jobs for my first co-op term. And then eventually I landed doing like a QA testing role. And then I realized it wasn't really something I want to do, and I want to kind of keep exploring. And that's why I started switching careers pathways so many times. So that's kind of what my experience was like.
I like that. Now, looking back on it, I don't know if this is the same for you. For me, I kind of felt a little like a similar sensation when I first started job searching versus like when I was, job searching for the however manyth time, years down the road. And I feel like there were parts of the first job search that were easier because I didn't have any preconceptions. I didn't hear like or read a buzzword in the job description and think like, we're like a family. Oh my God, problems. But you know what I mean? Like you don't have those red flags, right? It's kind of like when you first start dating and you're just like, oh, it's going to be milkshakes and sock hops. It's going to be perfect. I promise I'm not 1,000, y'all. Promise. But yeah, and then once you go into the, when you're doing it again, and again, like there's other stressors and other things that layer on top of that, but at least you're not quite as lost. It's not like, it's not like being told where you have to pack for a camping trip along the Appalachian Trail. I know you've only walked 47 feet and you have never seen the trail and have no idea where it's located, but go. So you feel like, I know what path I'm on, but like, I'm not prepared. I don't know where I'm going. I've never been outside of my house ever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I feel like it's,
yeah.
if you're not at your first go around on this, I do think there are still a lot of great insights to be gained by kind of coming back and taking this fresh look at the process.
Yeah.
How do you think that your identity affected your job search and your experience starting a company? I feel like there's visual diversity, there is non-visual diversity, there are intersectionalities that, people will never know looking at you. There's people that'll be friends with you that might never know. So in all of these levels that make up who we are as people, how do you think that your identity affected your job search?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Honestly, like when you were talking, I was like, yeah, that's like I feel like people looking at me and like even my friends, like I think when they look at me, they're like, oh, she's like really put together and like she knows what she's up. Like she had all these internships. But like in reality, I'm like kind of like a duck, like where I'm
Yes,
very calm on the surface and then underneath I'm like, oh.
just an orange blur.
Yeah, exactly. Like for me, like that's one of the reasons why I advocate for like mental health so like significantly, because for me, like my personal experience has been like I personally have like a disability, and I'm also like Asian Canadian, and also like also multitudes of different intersectionalities that I can go on and on about, but like but I think it's just, I feel like it affects how you kind of perceive the recruitment process and how it feels like it's not really made for you in a sense, because I like don't like quote me too much, but like I just know like from my personal experience and also what other people have told me is like, oh, like, people who are male or Caucasian, like when they see their names, like, like
Oh
Josh
yeah, like
Johnson or something.
Trevor's more likely to get his resume looked
Yeah,
at.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Oh, guys, I mean, even the alphabet thing. I got married and changed my last name, and I moved up from an M in the alphabet to an A. I was job seeking at the time, and truly, the week I changed my name,
Mhm.
I got 14 more. Like it was huge. It was
Wow,
a wild
that's
jump.
amazing.
All because of my the where I fall in the alphabet. The dumbest thing ever. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
alphabet only goes in the order we say it goes because it's the song, y'all. Like, let's talk about this. But anyway, yeah, like you're right. The idea of something like mental health being so important to you is it is absolutely one of those things that can be visible. I am one of the neurodivergent community. I live with bipolar disorder as well as anxiety, depression. And these are all things that can make the job hunting process feel much dicier. You're
Yeah.
having to disclose something that you don't know if they're going to be okay. Or in terms of, like you said, visual diversity, you don't know if you're getting passed over because you don't fit the mold.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like in the beginning of my like recruitment process and journey, like I used to like hide a lot of stuff. And I was like, oh, I don't have any issues. Like I'll just do my work and like I'll just get it done no matter the cost kind of thing. But then I think over time, like kind of feeling that burnt out feeling like a lot more, and it became more significant and just exacerbated a lot of my issues. I feel like I needed to tell them in a way so that it wasn't like, oh, why didn't you get this work done? Or like, why is it taking you so long? That kind of
Well,
thing.
it's important context, right? You're not trying for excuses. You're trying to give an understanding of here's what's going on. Here's what I'm working with and against and under and through. And here's what I'm able to do. I tell you this is the best. I will give you the best that I can. But this is it today. And I struggle with that constantly.
Yeah, I know. I feel that. Like I just, there's some days where I'm like, am I doing this job right? Like, and sometimes when you get that feedback that like, oh, you're not doing it right, then I'm like, that's what.
Yep. Oh yeah, the catastrophizing. Like you get like we have wonderful community members. We get compliments on all kinds of stuff about these events, and those are always great, but it's never the ones that stick with you, right? You're always like,
yeah,
but everyone's mad. One person said they didn't like it, so everybody's mad.
Exactly. There's always a critic. Like, but yeah, I saw there was a comment from Henry who
I did. So thank you, Henry, for sending this in the group chat. I kind of derelicted my duties a little bit at the beginning. If y'all have questions, please send them in. We would love to ask them of Jacqueline. So if you got questions, comments, anything, please feel free to send in. Henry says, as someone who's neurodiverse, disabled, and queer, job hunting is very much like dating. Most folks look at the profile and are like Homer going back into the bushes. Then the ones who do meet see you and ghost as soon as possible. Like, I gotta go to the bathroom. Right? Like it does kind of feel like one of those, right? You want people to know who you are because you, like, as we all know and try to remember, you can't get support if people don't know that you need it.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're right. It can be a very scary situation because you don't know what is the thing that might tip the scales, against your favor. You don't know. And
exactly.
it's not like, well, I just won't tell them about such and such, because like every time you do one of those things, like, it's exhausting.
Yeah, it is. And it's like you have to hide it. And it's just like, it just makes it harder for you to like navigate those conversations. And I did start doing that like in my last few internships. And I think navigating can be difficult because like you don't know how everyone's going to react. But I think for the most part, like I've noticed like larger companies are able to like accommodate you more in terms of like physical things like equipment and things like that. But there's definitely those like high expectations there that are still put in place. So you somehow still need to like navigate the situation even with some of your issues, and maybe you're not operating like at the same like level as like other people, but like I still find myself to be like high performing person. So I feel that, however I get there, it just takes me a different route. And so it's okay if you feel like that. And like, I have like really extreme like imposter syndrome sometimes when I go to work. So like, it's totally fine and normal if you feel like that, but like overcoming that, like that's the important step to like kind of get over invisible and visible, like, I guess representation of yourself.
Yeah, of course. All right. So what do you think, what else do you think is important for students or early career professionals who are looking for a job, right? If you are trying to transition from, the education and your school days into the real world or adulting or the big kids or whatever it is you call it, what tips do you think were professional, like particularly helpful, or you think people should know?
Oh, so many. Okay, so I would say like the top few like tips I would say in terms of recruitment, like applying your experience, is trying to either like try to find internships or extracurricular activities that are relevant in the field that you want to go into. So it could be like, let's say you want to go into marketing, and so first of all, like, take those marketing courses in your school, and then also try to get involved with like marketing student associations or even like marketing professional groups that are outside of your school. Those can be super helpful. Or you can even just join like a broad like business group within your school or in your community, because I feel like you'll be able to gain a lot of both like student connections as well as professional connections and gain mentorship that way. And then the other thing is like getting internships. Like, as I was mentioning, like I've had these internships and it really helped me like having one internship builds onto the next internship, and then you can keep getting more and more and showcasing that like, yeah, I'm like a high performing asset, like I can do this work, I'm adaptable, that kind of thing. And I think that's super important. And then the other advice I would give is networking, but like do it at your own pace. Like I know it can seem daunting to like network, especially if you're introverted or you're shy, or you don't feel like you're a good conversationalist. Like, just have like small steps towards it. Like, okay, I'll talk to like one person like in this event, or like I'll have like one like meaningful conversation and try to connect with them on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
or just be like, okay, I'll stay here for like 15 minutes and then try to talk to people, as much people as I can in that time. Like you don't have to feel like obligated to talk to everyone. Just talk to people who you think are meaningful, or you just like serendipity, you kind of bump into them and like, and it just kind of happens sometimes.
Yeah, that makes, that it really reminds me, kind of brings me back. Like I'm not that old. I'm 36, but I have been in the
Mhm,
working world for a while.
mhm, mhm,
And, it really does kind of bring me back to that first time feeling like I was at the big kids table.
mhm.
And like that, we've talked about a couple different, factors in this: imposter syndrome, being fresh, like all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But like it really does, it can really feel like you are, there's this whole, you're entering a whole new social
Mhm.
arena, right? It's a
Yeah.
completely different environment than and most of us have ever been in. Going and visiting your parents at work or hanging out with your friend while they're,
Mhm.
working at their after school job is not the same.
Yeah.
And it can feel like you have to know the protocols like right
Mhm.
away.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that I think that that's something that we all put a lot of pressure on ourselves, right? Because
Mhm.
you don't want to be like, the new kid that's like screwing up or something. You don't want to be the
Mhm.
kid.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think it is, there is a lot of pressure there to do everything the right way,
Mhm.
as opposed to what
Yeah.
you're saying is like, pick the things that you can control. Start small because you're trying to build those habits, right? You're
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
figure out what kind of worker you're going to be, what your
Mhm.
professional like persona and professional like reputation is going to be like.
Mhm.
Tons
Exactly.
of pressure, but that's why you paint with a small brush and not a giant
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't be Bob Ross overnight. Like it just not gonna
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love that. Now I'm gonna have to listen to Bob Ross later. Thank you.
happen.
All right. So if people are going through this search and they're experiencing a lot of adversity or a lot of rejection, I want to talk about that a little bit. Henry had actually chimed in the chat and said something really, really in line with this, saying that ageism is the dirty secret in DEI. Henry says, I'm 50. I scrubbed my resume of date references and got a call from a tech recruiter. We met in a call and he quickly realized I was older. Hey, this job only pays blah blah blah. You're probably wanting something that pays more. We'll keep your resume, blah blah blah. And I've been in this as well, where you feel like not necessarily overqualified, but like, I've been finished college and a year of law school, and then was applying for bartender and secretary jobs because that's what, graduate into the recession. This is what we do. And so yeah, there are tons of people that get that like kind of soft backing away
Yeah.
interview like experience.
Yeah.
And so when you have experienced this, what are some of the things that you've done to if not correct these problems, at least make it better for you?
Yeah, I guess for me, like I'm kind of like in my mid-20s, so like I feel like I'm like in this weird zone of like, oh, I should be like an adult now, kind of like idea. And then also like I'm a student at the same time. So it just feels like I'm like considered a mature student. And so sometimes it can feel hard for me to relate to other people in my cohort. But also when I'm recruiting, I'm still categorized to be a student. So I still have to go for like new grad roles or entry level roles, even though my experience is more like I have more professional experience. So I think it's just trying to navigate that is like, I guess being flexible. Like a lot of people will like have bias against you, like whatever it may be, whether it's age or race or sexuality and things like that.
Mhm.
But you want to find companies like through like Power to Fly or for undergrad or um like Tapia, Grace Hopper Conference, like they all have like these companies that encourage diversity. So try to explore like groups like that where they focus on that diversity aspect because then they're already like filtered out. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's super important to do and don't take it personally. Like everyone has like their own implicit bias everywhere they go and you want to make sure that you fit with the company that you're working for. So again, like it is like dating and dating is also like recruitment, like at the same time. So I just like, it's all intertwined. It's just all just like relationships, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. And you're right that there are certain times where despite misgivings, I have felt compelled to share something about, about my, neurodivergent issues or, whatever. And it's always that fine line, right? Of like, I want them to know what's going on and I want to make sure that I can get the support that I need, but you are putting yourself out on the limb there. And there are plenty of us who are not resourced enough to be able to make that call. And we have to make these hard choices, and you make do with what you are able to have in your orbit. So I do just want to highlight for everybody that's listening, like, we totally understand that a lot of what we're talking about of like holding out for a place that is going to, going to value you and support you and trying to find that great job. We absolutely understand. You have to kiss a lot of horrible frogs and do their taxes before you can like find a frog you like working with and kissing.
Yeah,
This is horrible metaphor. I got to stop it. No, we're cutting
No,
that
I
line.
totally
That was
get where you're
bad.
going with this.
No, the dating metaphor was good, but when I combined it with frogs, it was tailspin quickly. Okay, so you are bringing us, the perspective of somebody living in and working in Canada. Obviously, I kind of only come from the perspective of, Americentric, and we have audience members and community members from all over the world. Do you think there are any things that international students need to keep in mind, or things that they should do to be successful in the recruitment process?
There's a lot of things. So I guess during my conversations with international students is making sure you really understand like the visa process, like how much, because there's sometimes like limitations to how many hours you can work every week while you're in school versus when you're not in school, and then how long it takes until your visa expires before you have to go back, or you have to find a job within a certain amount of time. So just make sure you're really like aware of what the rules are and what their limitations are. And then the other thing you need to understand is like which companies are able to sponsor you. So when you're a student, you have like the appropriate like visa to work in a company like for an internship. But once you're graduated, you have like a limited time to apply for companies, and you need to make sure that the company who you work for is able to support you on the visa that you're on. Like I think there's like the OPT one, there's also H1B for Canadians and TN for Canadians as well. So I'm looking at also from that lens of like being a Canadian working in the US, or like being an international student working like in the US. So I think, yeah, you just need to keep in mind like the visa process and like the limitations, like which companies are actually going to be sponsoring or able to sponsor you. And then also look at, I guess, gaining that experience because of those limitations. So kind of reiterating what I was saying before about getting those extracurriculars, getting those internships. You can even like start your own startup or side projects if you're not able to. And there's so many groups out there, like Rewriting the Code, which is like a woman in technology group where you can like collaborate on projects. You could be part of design buddies, product buds. There's just so many communities out there. So really like leverage the online communities as well as your school communities to help you branch out and collaborate on like a worldwide level. And then you'll be able to gain those opportunities through those experiences.
Great. Okay. We've gotten some great comments in the chat thread here, y'all. I'm parsing through and reading all of them. So thank you, Melinda and Carrie Ann, especially. Thank you for chiming in as well. All right, we have 2 questions left. Samuel's asking if you have any advice for boot camp grads. And then the last thing we want to talk about is international hubs. So what do you have any special advice for people that come out of boot camps?
That's a good question. So just take my advice and with a grain of salt, because I don't have personal experience with being a boot camp like grad, but from what I've found, at least within the technology field, like a lot more companies, especially more in the startup and like medium-sized companies space, they're a lot more open to having more like equivalent experience rather than having a bachelor's degree. If you're a bootcamp grad, I would also think you would have to like avoid those like new grad programs, because I feel like they're very focused on undergrad students. But make sure you look at like the description, like it'll specify like, oh, you have to be an undergrad and you have to have this GPA and an accredited school in Canada or US, something like that. But I've been finding like even some certain big companies like Google, Facebook. They're opening up a little bit, but there's still that like, very traditional approach of recruitment of like, oh, you need a degree to get a job, but like it's not necessary in my opinion, like in the tech field, you can just learn on your own, and you can also learn through boot camp. So like, I'll start applying for like startups or medium-sized companies that have like more like preferred qualifications for like degrees, and then just go from there. And you can also talk to recruiters too and see what their thoughts are about boot camp grads as well.
I love that. Matt's chiming in the chat thread saying, as a boot camp grad, show people that you can do the skills. The tough part of the boot camp is the fire hose effect. How much did you retain, and how can you use those skills? Work on a portfolio that shows how you applied them, and then consider doing some pro bono to build reps. And, this sounds very similar, Jacqueline, to what you had mentioned, looking for passion projects, ways that you can try and utilize and practice these new skills. I love that idea. I also love the idea of kind of trying to make sure that you are focusing on the application of the skill. Would probably make it a lot easier than to try and write up a resume about like what you learned, right? Because you can't just like attach the course syllabus. You do, you want them to see like, hey, here's what I'm able to do.
Exactly.
So yeah, I very much like that. All right, in our last 3 minutes, let's talk about International Hub. I'm so sorry, I wanted to get to this earlier, but
No problem.
what do you want people to know about it? What can it offer to international students?
Yeah, for sure. So International Hub is an organization that me and my co-founder, Deborah, started to support international students across Canada, to help them basically with the job recruitment process and just building their professional career. So we started out as a community on Ladder, and now it's called like Nova. And we also had a database of like various opportunities like fellowships, internships, scholarships, things like that. And now we're trying to personalize the experience more and do more like market research on what people are looking for job hunting or just professional upskilling. So if you want to learn more information, you can connect with me like on LinkedIn. I'll provide like my information in the chat. And we're just open to like new ideas, and we want to make sure that we're always trying to cater and personalize the experience for international students, whether it's through like the visa process, building the right skills for resumes, cover letters, negotiation process, like even managing and navigating the workplace environment can be challenging because there's like that cultural difference for international students. So definitely you can check us out, and feel free to ask me any questions on LinkedIn. Like I'm open to chatting. And yeah, I really appreciate Meg, like for you taking the time to like moderate this chat and ask me questions. It was like a really great discussion.
Thank you. I really love these sessions. Honestly, it's so much fun for me, but I just want to say, Jacqueline, thank you so much. It has been really wonderful to get to talk to you this morning and learn from your experience. So thank you so much. And I hope we get to speak and do this again soon. For our audience members, if you would also like to connect with Jacqueline or learn more about International Hub, I'm throwing some links in the chat here. Jacqueline, I think I found your LinkedIn URL. But if you got anything else you want us to share, throw it in the chat. I'll make sure it's the website. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us.